What's up, BoobTube? Josh here today to do another one of my training insight videos. There's probably a million of these done on the internet, but I wanted to give my take on how to get around Road Atlanta decently quickly in a Miata that's got some aero on it. Forward disclaimer here that I'm no way, means, or shape a professional race car driver. This is just insight and what I look for around the track to help anybody that's a beginner or anything else. There's only two corners on this track that really the aero really takes into effect on a Miata. All the rest of the corners are going to be pretty much the same, whether or not you're in a Miata with aero or a Miata without aero. So let's go ahead and get started here. So as you can see, we are climbing the hill, turn 11, whatever you want to call it. Right now at this point, I am looking at this, what used to be some sort of flag underneath Fox Factory. That's pretty much where I aim. There's no reason in a higher horsepower car you want to aim more towards the inside of the bridge, because you can actually come across the top with so much speed that you'll kind of glide the car over to the outside of the corner. But since we're in a low horsepower car with a little bit of downforce, there's no reason for us to even worry about it. Plus, it's also wet over here, so over to the right. So there's no reason to worry about that. So let's go ahead and push forward here. As you can see, come across the top and down the bottom. Really, there's not any good landmark to look for. As you can see, this was done when they were in the process of rebuilding the tower. So this video is actually pretty old. Also, the car had a hurt motor in this. We were running on, I call it 3.5 cylinders, but it was down on power on one cylinder. We did a leak down test later on in the year, and it was hurt pretty bad. So at this point, you kind of have to fill it out. Once you've done a few laps, you can figure out kind of where your placement wants to be in the track. You kind of want to be in the middle. Here I usually look for the pro pits dash line is kind of the area that I'm looking for to point towards. But as you crest down to the bottom of the hill, it's 100% flat. Depending on how much speed you carried over the top, you could be going from third to fourth in the middle of turn 12. Looks like here I'm going to be probably already in fourth before I get there. So let's continue on. Alright, so here, don't ever use these outside rumble strips. They'll beat you to death, and they're not really conducive to going very quickly. But at this point, I'm looking towards the inside, and this is full flat unless it's raining or slick or something outside, or it's a drying track, kind of like this. But even this is still, I'm still flat through here, carrying as much speed as possible. So now we're on the front straight, and this is where I'm looking for my braking point. My usual area of whether I breathe the throttle, depending on how comfortable I'm feeling in the car, or actually drag the brake a little bit, is at the exit of the amateur pits. So where the wall ends is usually where I start braking or drag braking. And you can hear I actually got on a little earlier, mainly because the track is slick. So at this point, you don't want to turn in early. This is a late apex corner, because if you actually late apex it, you can feel the curvature of the road actually help you. If you early apex it, you cut a lot of speed off and you kind of drive over that hump and onto the outside of the course. Um, you'll see my line here in a second. So at this point, I'm looking towards uh, the spotter tower over here, your flagger's stand, and that's kind of my go-to area for me to look at um, for turn 1. And this is going to be depending on conditions, a 4th or a 5th gear corner. A non-Aero Miata will probably be in 4th. But in dry weather, with the Aero, you can breathe the throttle and turn it in and let the actual grip of the car slow the car down. And from there, you can determine whether or not you're going to push forward or not. This is a little bit of a not very forgiving corner. If you mess it up, you're going to go off. But luckily, if you go off, you're not going to go off sideways or backwards or anything like that. You're just going to have overdrove the corner and slide off, and you can drive out of it and get back on course, unless you just do something really dumb and just full send into the corner. So let's go ahead and see where we're at. So right here, you see me starting to turn in. If you were trying to turn in early, you'd be a much further to the right, but I'm aiming right at the rumble strips right now, looking there, and you can't really see it here because of how the shading is on the track, but you can kind of see the curvature when you're actually there. You can see it, and you're going to drive into it and then stay off the rumble strip, and then as soon as before you get to the apex, you're back full throttle again. And once you're full throttle, then you're full throttle all the way up through turn 2 and up until turn 3. And at this point, you have no idea where you're going. So there's this big tree in the middle of the track. That's kind of the direction that you want to be going towards. It's kind of at the apex of 3, but it gives you a good place, a good reference to be aiming for. So you're going to come up the hill. So you're aiming at the tree and you're coming up the hill. This is another corner where you kind of have to figure out and fill it out where you need to be. But once you get to the crest of the hill is when you start to be able to see over the crest of the hill is when you need to start turning in for turn 2. So you turn in, and depending on how you're feeling, you can drive across these rumble strips or stay off of them. I usually tend to drive across them a little bit, and then you want to brake straight as possible into turn 3, and you're going to shift all the way down into 3rd, maybe 2nd in traffic, but usually it's 3rd. And then you're going to drive. You're literally going to aim for the rumble strip and drive across it. They've put bumpers there that are bumpers, but they're pretty much speed bumps, and they will beat you to death if you go across this slowly. If you carry enough speed across it, you'll kind of skim across them and you won't really feel them, and that's what the goal is here. So you can see I'm carrying quite a bit of speed through here, 70 miles an hour almost, and it's just going to glide right across it. Actually, I didn't even hit the rumble strip that time. I just kind of drove around it. But when it's dry, you can pretty much drive across that thing and be good. And then from here, you're just flat. You're flat through the S, all the way down through the S's complex, which is all turn 4. So you're flat all the way down through here, hugging the rumble strips on both sides, going both directions. And then once you get down into the bottom, you want to straighten this out as much as possible, obviously, to make it fast. So I always hug the right side a little bit and then straighten it out for the rest of the complex. And then right at the start of the rumble strips on the right before you get to turn 5 is where I start to brake, or where I start feeling the brakes to make sure, the brakes are going to be there real good. So at this point, I'm starting to brake, and usually you will drive across these rumble strips to make the line straight. If it's wet, you want to stay off of them, but usually drive across them. And then now that you're at this point, this is a pretty simple, easy corner to get through. It's usually third or fourth gear, depending on traffic and how your run's going. I usually take it in fourth because it's one less shift that you have to deal with. But the awesome line to take here is to carry a lot more speed than what you think. So this is the other corner. I said there's two main corners on this track that Aero play a big role in. Turn 1 and Turn 5 are the two corners that really play a role on Aero on this track, in my opinion. So at this point, you're carrying more speed than you should, and you got to trust the Aero. And you're going to actually overdrive the corner, because if you overdrive the corner, you're going to ride out on the paint, on the painted rumble strip portion of the track. And you'll see here as I come across it why you do that, because I can carry a lot more speed through here doing this than trying to cut it short and keeping it inside the rumble strip. It's all about keeping the car from being bound up. You'll see that a lot of spec Miata racers do this, follow this line, unless there's wet track conditions. So let's see here. See how you drive out. So at this point, you're on this part of the rumble strip. You want to make sure that you're really far to the right if you are going to take this line, because right here where this blue section is, it's going to beat you to death. There's a really big hump right here. So if you're over here on the right, you'll be good, and it's nice and smooth off of it. You don't have to worry about it. So at this point, you're driving down the straightaway towards 6. There's actual braking markers. I usually brake at I think these are 150, 150, and I usually brake pretty late at the second marker. And this is a stereotypical 100% straightforward corner. Brake, turn in, hit the apex, and follow it up. If you get the way this complex works, 6 and 7, if you get 6 right, you're going to mess up 7. If you get 6 wrong, you're going to get 7 right. So 6 and 7 are it's just how they're built. If you get both of them right, you're really rolling, and it's really hard to get both of them correct because there's always traffic. You always run into somebody, or you're having you know, late on the brake a little bit going into 6, and it throws your line off and everything else. So let's follow in. So as you can see, I'm down in the brakes now, right over here where the second marker usually is. I also use the lines going across the road or the track. There's one a little bit further back. Sometimes I'll brake there if I'm not driving the car really hard. But usually it's pretty late because there's quite a bit of banking to this corner that you can't really see in the naked eye until you drive through it, and you can feel it. So turn in, get pretty close to the rumble strip, and drive on out. So now at this point, you're going to drive on out to the outside rumble strip and get ready to downshift and late apex this corner. So you're going to pretty much not turn in until you get to the end of this rumble strip on the left, and that's where you've passed the point of turn in for a normal apex, and you're aiming for a late apex. So I turned in a little early here, probably because of traffic or because of weather conditions. But if you late apex it, you make your back straight a lot longer, and you carried a lot more speed down through here. So I still late apexed it a little bit, but it was still pretty on par. But slid the car a little bit there, so I lost a little bit of time there. But other than that, that was a decent 7. I wouldn't say that was a great 7. So now at this point, we're going down the back straight. This is flat for forever. And if you look at the mile per hour, you can tell that we're actually down on power. We should be in the 115, 120 ballpark before we get down to 10A and B. But so at this point, you start tracking back towards the right. This is if you're racing, this is the corner you make tons of passes on, because a lot of people don't have a lot of faith and trust in their car. I couldn't tell you how many times I've passed 3 or 4 cars on the inside, just late braking down through here because we can do it and others can't. So usually start braking at the second marker. Boom, right there, start braking, and it's hard on the brakes, and you want to make sure that you keep your outside tires almost on the rumble strips, and once the rumble strips come to an end is when you're going to want to turn in. So you turn in and you want to drive across the inside rumble strips on 10A and 10B, and once you get through, if you take 10A correctly, once you get through 10A, you should be back flat on the throttle all the way until you get back to turn 1. So that's a good judge of whether or not you've taken 10A correctly in my perspective. So you're going to drive across the rumble strips here, and then you're back flat on the throttle 100%. And I usually swing it a little bit, back a little bit, just to kind of throw the body weight of the car, to switch the body weight a little bit. That way it loads the left side up a little bit heavier, and it solidifies my confidence on the car actually sticking and driving all the way up through here, and then obviously back underneath 11 and down through 12 and across the start finish line. So I'm going to shut up now and let you watch the complete lap, so that you can see what I would consider a decent lap in this lap that we've actually been talking about at speed. All right, enjoy, guys.